Okay, now we're going to talk about camera operation. So by a show of hands, who all has operated like a video camera or a DSLR or anything like that? All right, fantastic. So a good amount of us are familiar with cameras in general. There's obviously a lot of differences between different types of cameras, but I want to talk about a couple things. Anyone ever heard of the rule of thirds? Okay, good. I'm glad we're starting with some basic knowledge here. This is an example of the rule of thirds in an overlay that lets you know that the framing is divided into 3 areas, 3 here and 3 there. And so this particular example, because Brent is, I would say, facing the camera, he's slightly, tilted, turns, but for the most part, he's facing the camera. So he's framed in the center, and his eyes are above this top third line. If you're a current volunteer and you run camera while I'm the tech director, you might hear me say all the time, all right, hey, clean up that headroom. I need a little bit less headroom. That's probably because what I'm noticing is the eye line is below this, and I want the head and eyes above that line. That's the correct framing. Another example is this right here. You'll notice that Bane right now is looking that direction, and so, sorry, I guess that wasn't as funny as I thought it would be. But Jamar, who's a fantastic piano player, he's looking this way. And so therefore his framing is right here on this left third, not in the center, because if he was in the center, there'd be all this dead space. Anytime you've got a subject who's looking one way, you want to frame them on the opposite side, that opposite third, so that they're looking where there's going to be the most space. This shot is, it looks good. This might even have been able to push that direction a little bit, and having him maybe more right here in this third space. But for the most part, this is framed up well. We do this same framing for our video announcements. When I'm filming with Josh or filming with Rachel, whoever's the talent on camera, since they're looking at the camera, they're going to be framed in the middle. But if they're turned this way, it's going to be like this, with more space over here. And if they're turned this way, it's going to be more space on this side. You never want to frame somebody when they're looking at the edge of the screen there. That would not be correct. Now, one thing we've added recently is a rolling television on the platform during the message portion of the service. And if you're following our YouTube channel, then you have probably already seen the quick training that I did on that, just to introduce, hey, this is something new and this is how we're setting it up. But you'll notice that Pastor Dan is on this left third, TV's in the right third. Anytime you have 2 subjects, that's the kind of framing you want. If it were 3 subjects, you would 1, 2, 3, and that's how you want to frame them up. But this is the shot that we go to whenever we have new scripture or bullets or content that's coming up on the screen, and then quickly go to a close-up of Pastor Dan. There he is, framed up in the center, eyes above the top third line, so that's good, that's what we want. And then you'll notice this is in the lower third. These are called lower thirds. If you've ever heard that term before, titles are also called lower thirds because they show up in the lower third. So let's talk about some shots that we can see happen for all the camera operators. So whether or not you're brand new, never operated a camera before, or you have been doing this for many, many years, here's some things that we like to see in our productions. Slow and steady pans. That's panning left to right across the stage. And I emphasize slow and steady because in our sanctuary, we have these big screens where our images are magnified. And so what may feel slow to most people on the big screen like that is actually fairly quick, and it's going to move fairly quickly across that screen. It's a bigger screen, and so it's got further to move. Every image does, and so slow is slower than you might even think at first is probably a better solution to go for those pans. Same thing goes with tilts. Tilts is just referring to up and down. So if we're going to be starting on the congregation and then slightly tilting up, slowly and steady, and using that shot, that's going to work. Slow zooms in and slow zooms out. I'm noticing that more, us doing that more, and I love it. It's just, I want to emphasize again, slow. It's all about slow. It's all about steady. It's making sure that you've got, the right amount of pressure on your toggle, to push in and push out, and making sure that there's really consistent movement there. Pans of the choir are great. One of the things that's unique about our church is that we have a very, very strong choir and music program, and so the services that we have the choir, which is basically every service, it's great to get shots of the choir, pans of the room, basically getting a variety of things. Steady tracking of the speaker. That's important during the message, that when if the speaker's moving around, it might be happening more or less because we have that television on the platform, but not every speaker will utilize that. But it's so important to be tracking and be aware of where that person is moving. And one thing that I would say is always pay attention to like the shoulders. The face moves around quite a bit and it's hard to track with, but focus on the shoulders. That's going to help you when someone's going to turn. Their shoulders are going to turn just slightly. It gives you kind of a leadway into which direction they're going to go. It's kind of like in sports, like if you're playing defense against someone in basketball, they say don't look at the ball, look at their chest, their numbers or whatever, because they're going to juke you out. And sometimes our speakers will juke us out. We've had speakers in the past that like to go back and forth so much, and it's just like, what's going on, what's going on? So pay attention to these shoulders. Close-ups, waist-up shots, and head-to-toe. Those are 3 basic general types of shots that you can get. I don't have a sample for you, but a close-up would basically be from the shoulders up, something like that. The waist-up would be near the waist, but actually cutting off right below the elbow joint. We don't want to go above it, but right below it. And then a head-to-toe would be basically either cutting right below the knee joint or going all the way beyond the feet. So those are kind of the general composition for video, even photography, but primarily video. All right, tech directors. All you who are in here that are current tech directors or those that are interested in getting part of the rotation to be a tech director, if you've been a camera operator for a while now, if you're feeling like, hey, I'm confident, I want to keep doing that, but I also want to start getting into tech directing, these are some things I just want to pinpoint on that. The most important thing is use a variety of shots. That doesn't mean that every single shot has to be different like throughout the run of the service, but just the fact that like we want people to be seeing wide shots and close-up shots and head-to-toe and mid shots and close-ups of hands on the piano if that's possible, shots of musicians. We just want the variety because we want people that are watching online to have a more immersive experience in the service. And so be sensitive, tech directors, to how the music is and play along with that. In worship, cut every 5 seconds. That would be my goal, is to be kind of thinking, all right, cut, and then be, all right, what's coming up next? Okay, and cut, and that's kind of the pace we want. On slower songs, it could be a little bit longer, 7, 8 seconds between. But after about 5 seconds, I feel like the viewer's probably they're just wanting to see something else. So that's the pace at which we want to cut. I do want to emphasize this: do not cut to a similarly framed shot. So what I mean by that is, we've got 3 cameras set up in the back of the sanctuary right now, and let's say camera 1 has a waist-up shot of someone. It doesn't matter. Let's say they have a waist-up shot of Brent, who's leading a song. Camera 2 then has a waist-up shot of Gerard, who's singing backup on a song. We don't want to cut from camera 1 to camera 2 because the framing is so similar. Even though it's a different subject, because the framing is both waist-up to waist-up, it doesn't look good. It'd be better to go from Brent waist-up to maybe a wide shot to then back to Gerard waist-up, and so on and so forth. And then I think by saying that, then the obvious would apply. Don't go from a waist-up shot of Brent to another waist-up shot of Brent from a different camera angle, even if it's slightly, a different approach. That is just kind of like a no-no. Like let's not do that. It's always weird to the brain. It always feels awkward anytime it happens. I know it's difficult to not have too much variety because right now we only have the 3 cameras, but let's try our best to not cut to similarly framed shots. And then always, tech directors, call the shot. I know that I have emphasized this before, but we don't have currently a system set up to where the camera operators know when their feed is live on the screens. If you're in there, you might very well see them, but we don't have the infrastructure in place for you to be able to have a red bar that says, you're live, your shot is up. And so it's super important for the tech director to make sure that as soon as they cut to something, hey, 2, you're live. And so the camera 2 doesn't automatic or accidentally start trying to find something else, or in the middle of trying to get set up. It's just like, you know, let them know that they're live. And beyond that, you know, I know we all have slightly different approaches to how we're cueing shots, but my ideal way of doing it would be, you know, hey, ready 2, you're live. Ready 3, or get ready 2, 3, you're live, or whatever, and letting them know, hey, I'm coming up, I'm gonna use you, stay right there, and then you're live. And the same thing goes for moving shots. If it's just like, okay, 2, I like that shot, and okay, ready, go 2, and then 2 starts panning, 2, you're live. But that constant communication throughout the worship portion of the service is incredibly important. If you've seen some of these worship reviews that I've been doing on YouTube, where I'm taking the first song or 2 and I'm just going back and I'm just critiquing, like, okay, let's work on this, let's work on that. I can tell when somebody's calling shots well and communicating versus when they're probably maybe not on top of it as much as they should be, because I'll see these little glips and little errors, and it's like, well, that probably could have been avoided, you know, if we had been calling the shots. So I can't stress that enough.